We've known since the start of BLUELOCK that Itoshi Rin is the #1 player, the final boss, and the main character's rival. And usually in anime, the deuteragonist is strong to push the main character to evolve and become stronger. It's a very common trope, and it's not hidden that Itoshi Rin is very strong, arguably the best player in every single game he's played in. But with the newest chapter, Itoshi Rin has yet again awakened and become stronger, but now it seems like he's a little too strong. I mean, having a unique, perfect weapon that destroys teams by himself, needing two amazing players to team up just to go against him, and then now unlocking a completely new weapon to counter them. So the community's reaction to Rin getting yet another power-up was pretty crazy. People are fed up with it at this point, calling him too strong, even coming up with a new nickname, Plot Toshi Rin, because the plot just gives him everything. So I really want to take some time and discuss Itoshi Rin and why people think he's too overpowered, and how his character being so strong creates so many problems. You see, Rin was already considered overpowered before this chapter, soloing teams by himself, being the only threat on a team full of talented players, and being so perfect he can somehow play every position. Me already saying this, you can easily see how he's overpowered. It's pretty much combining 3 players into one, a striker, a midfielder, and a defender. I've been saying this for the longest time now. Itoshi Rin is so strong that he is a better overall player than Mikage Reo, who is literally known for being a balanced overall player who can do anything. Because on top of being an overall player, he has some insane weapons in each category, especially considering the most recent chapter. Let's start with the obvious one, his main weapon, Itoshi Rin's Destroyer Mode. Now, Destroyer Mode, by definition, just sounds so broken already, bringing out and killing his opponent's greatest weapon. And then you see it in action, soloing teams by himself. Do I really need to explain how insane this panel is? There is all of Bastard Munich and their family on Itoshi Rin, and he still scores after this. Which brings up another point and hypes up Rin even more. It really took all of Bastard to try and stop Destroyer Mode, Destroyer Rin, subbing in Igagori to foul him, all these players on him. Isagi, the #2 player in BLUELOCK, had to team up with a new Gen 11 player, the same title as his brother, the person he's supposed to surpass, by the way, in order to defeat him. Kaiser was really sick of Rin to the point he teamed up with someone he genuinely hates in order to surpass Rin. That is quite literally quoted from the manga. So you got 2 of the strongest players on Bastard teaming up to try and stop one singular player. And what does Rin do to counter this? Well, we got our answer in the most recent chapter, which is the thing that really blew up this discussion of Rin being too overpowered in the first place. In chapter 289, Kaiser and Isagi's team up reaches a peak, with Kaiser doing a Kaiser Impact Magnus Cross to Isagi. I don't know what kind of Yu-Gi-Oh card name that pass is, but the fastest shot swing in the world that Noel Noah says even surpasses him has turned into a pass. And what does Rin do to counter this? He says, "Oh, that's it," and stops the pass from getting to Isagi. It's then followed by a panel where it's revealed that Rin has unlocked Predator's Eye. This shocked everyone, and not for a good reason. Predator's Eye is already a strong weapon. Uber's hyped it up all the way, with Barou getting it as his new upgrade for the NEL. The defined weapon itself and how we've seen it used is Barou finding the timing where the goalkeeper drops his guard, using blind spots, and basically just focusing on solely the goal. Yukimiya getting Predator's Eye was a power-up for him, getting a shot off using it. And the next chapter, not even that, the next half chapter, Itoshi Rin got it himself, kind of overshadowing Yukimiya's power-up. Ah yes, Rin hasn't used this technique since the Heian era. To be honest, by definition, it kind of makes sense because Rin sort of used it in the 3rd selection, using the goalkeeper's blind spot, finding the perfect timing, focusing on solely the goal. We've known that Rin has sort of used it before. But this is a completely different thing here. Rin is using it on defense. Genuinely, the first time we're seeing Predator's Eye used on defense. So not only has he used Predator's Eye offensively, like how Barou did in the Ubers, which was his upgrade for the NEL, by the way, he has now used it defensively to focus on Isagi and blocking Kaiser's pass. Rin literally has every single player's ability at this point, and gaining more, which is why people are saying he's becoming too overpowered, especially as an individual player. I feel like I'm just barely touching the iceberg when it comes to Rin's powers. I still haven't mentioned his base mode, his spatial awareness and the fact that he probably has Metavision too, and all his other defensive feats. But we already know that Rin is too overpowered, so let's answer the more important question. What does this really mean for the manga moving forward? Because in my opinion, it changed a lot. The first thing is obviously the power scaling, or how you compare players, because now Rin is so overpowered. Again, Rin and Isagi were sort of equal rivals. Not really though. Rin during the NEL, even off-screen, was arguably still better than Isagi. But now with Destroyer Rin scoring a goal on him and soloing Bastard by himself, it's obvious that Rin is above Isagi. The plot really hints towards that, so to counteract this, Isagi needed the Kaiser team up in order to beat Rin, which is confusing as well. Does that mean a new Gen 11 player plus BLUELOCK's number 2 is equal to 1 Itoshi Rin? For me, Rin being so overpowered just creates a lot of questions and confusion, and if that's the case, is Itoshi Sai better than Kaiser because Rin wants to surpass Sai and Kaiser is trying to surpass Rin? And another question, is Rin already stronger than Sai at this point? It is really confusing, and my personal answer to this is we shouldn't give too much value to the Kaiser and Isagi team up. On paper, it does sound overpowered, and the reason why is because this game really looks like Isagi and Kaiser versus Rin. However, there is still a lot of other players which can be used. We see it in the most recent chapter as well, with Zantetsu pressing Kaiser and them attempting to split up their team up. I think the reason why people are giving a lot of value to it is, like I said, majority of this game has been Isagi and Kaiser versus Rin and the trash can friends, and the other players aren't really too relevant or have no impact. Like, even though Zantetsu was blocking Kaiser, he still got a Kaiser Impact Magnus Cross to Isagi, so even though he was there, it was like he didn't do anything because he didn't stop the play. Now, I'm not saying they have no impact. Zantetsu being there probably helped, and we've seen Karasu, Charles, Shido do stuff as well, just not as much as Rin, who does all of that solo. So to answer the question, in my opinion, I still think Kaiser is better in a team environment, whereas Rin is slightly better individually, and it makes sense considering their ego types, Rin being a genius and Kaiser being a talented learner. But being a better individual player doesn't necessarily correlate to being a better player on the pitch. What matters is your impact on the game, like if you're scoring goals and whatnot, and that's my point. You still have your whole team. I see people's confusion though, because where do you even value those things now? Like, who is better in a team environment and individually? Because this game is pretty much Kaiser and Isagi versus Rin. Which brings me to the next problem. Rin being so strong, it makes his team look like Alvin and the Chipmunks. I mentioned it a second ago, but the highlight really seems to focus on Rin. I can't remember the last time we saw Shido doing something relevant. Tokimitsu, yeah, bro, is definitely not making the top 23. It just sucks because PXG has the most stacked roster besides Bastard, filled with characters we know and love, as well as debatably one of the best strikers in BLUELOCK, who got casted to the side for Rin. I will say it's turning around a little more with other players getting highlight, PXG trying to split up Kaiser and Isagi, as well as Ness most likely going to have an awakening, but point still stands that this match is mostly Rin versus Isagi and Kaiser. And this really just culminates into a huge discussion that I want to address, and that's Rin being so strong that Isagi quote-unquote beating him just seems so far for most people, or just feels like a plot win. Rin has better physical stats, has his own unique weapon that solos teams, a bunch of other weapons, and his overall flexibility. Rin is being built up to be the best player. Now, even though on paper this is the case, Rin beats Isagi in almost every compartment individually. I don't see how individually Isagi will ever beat Rin. The manga and football doesn't really work like that. The story is obviously leaning towards Isagi as a talented learner, still being able to compete and go against these geniuses like Itoshi Rin. This is what Isagi's development throughout PXG has been all about. Basically, Isagi in a team environment, which is, you know, football in general, you have a team, he has other players to work with, form chemical reactions, and just use his weapons to the best of his abilities, would still be able to compete with this overpowered striker Rin. Now, even though the plot and narratively it's leaning towards that, it makes sense, I still think this doesn't justify Rin being so individually overpowered. Like, it's kind of way too much, because yes, I agree, it still seems a little unrealistic that Isagi somehow sacrificing himself counters this maxed out Roblox character. So is Rin overpowered? Yes, most definitely. Individually, there's no doubt about it, but the whole spectacle of Isagi will never surpass Rin, I think isn't too much of a debate when you look at the story, the plot, and what BLUELOCK and PXG has been telling us. The problem really lies in the U20 World Cup in my opinion. The most important thing, what we're really looking forward to, you're gonna have Rin playing for Japan alongside Isagi. So how do you make a new team, player, or country that can even compete against BLUELOCK or Japan? It comes to the point where you need to make a player even more individually overpowered than BLUELOCK's best player, which of course is Rin, and he's already so broken. Or you're gonna have to nerf Itoshi Rin or flesh out a whole team or a lot of players in order to make it believable that they can stop a whole team of BLUELOCK, and specifically Rin and Isagi. I feel like that's a very hard thing to do. Hopefully we get an arc before introducing us to a lot of the big threats for the U20 World Cup so we have time to develop them, because we've seen some star U20 players like Charles, for example, not really on the same level individually as Itoshi Rin, so that might be the same case for other U20 players we're introduced to. Of course, that really has to do with the main problem everyone is discussing, which is they made Rin too individually overpowered, which I agree with and is the whole point of the video to discuss that. It's not necessarily a bad thing for Isagi, but for any other player who goes against Rin as an individual, it makes it hard to believe that they're gonna surpass him. You got Sai, who obviously will eventually rematch against Rin, the new characters introduced in the U20 World Cup, or even the new Gen 11 players, because Rin seems to be on their level individually. I do trust Kaneshiro and Nomura completely. They've cooked so much so far. There's just a lot of discussion, and of course, I want to talk about all of that with y'all. So I want to know your thoughts. Do you think it's a problem that Rin is pretty much new Gen 11 level? Do you think he's too overpowered, or does this make sense for Rin? Any other thoughts as well, like Rin versus Isagi and Kaiser, and just your thoughts on the game as well? Leave it all in the comment section down below. Anyways, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it as always, and I'll see y'all in the next one.